They had to divide the world between the Soviet Empire and the U.S. British Empire so that they could all carry out crimes and take over countries and have an excuse to be in those Latin American and Asian nations. And the average FBI agent, the average KGB agent didn't even know what they were part of. This is why the bankers rule. They're smart. They're slick. They know what they're doing. How do you cut them off? The right wing never complains about corporate welfare. The right-wing mainline Republicans never complain when there's tens of trillions for the banks or tens of trillions for wars over the decades. They're mad about the welfare lady on welfare. The left is mad at corporate welfare, but not when they get in power, like Obama, the biggest defense budget in history, breaking his record last year of the biggest in history. So it's left-wing rhetoric to control their fake left-wing methodology with the general public as the false revolution they push the revolution into that they know is organic so they can control it. And yes, they do infiltrate and try to infiltrate right-wing groups, radicalize them, control them, create fake groups. Yes, that's going on. Yes. But does that not mean that some of the ideas of the left aren't legitimate, like let's not sterilize Indian women? Or many of the ideas of the mainline right aren't real, like let's have lower taxes? Bigger government is the tool for the corporate looting. But the average leftist who is angry at George Washington because he owned slaves, and that was the practice worldwide, then he freed his slaves, by the way, and wrote against it. But it was the slaves were like, please don't ship me back to Africa. It depended where they were. It was case by case, and they were, and most of them, when they would be freed, said, I don't want to leave. When you see stuff like Roots and shows like that, that is the extreme examples. It was a horrible institution, but it still goes on through government debt and control today. What do you think the third world's under through the IMF and World Bank? They're in a form of slavery. So instead of obsessing on the time that George Washington lived in 230 plus years ago, which the media does, why don't they talk about how the UN and eco-science all talks about how they want to kill off the third world brown people? See, when you get up to elite leftist level, like Cass Sunstein, President Obama's appointee to head the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs, again, when you get up to the level of this individual right here on screen for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers, you know, he calls it liberal to ban free speech and criticism of the government. He calls it liberal to take your guns. True classical liberalism is have all the guns you want, have all the private property you want. You be free. Just don't enslave anybody else. It's all a fraud. You guys are like computers that have been fed false information to where you can't even communicate.